Well, there was an epic speech from President Joe Biden last night and created waves of controversy. OMG, let's dig into what just happened, because I think people are still reeling from that bombshell with the background here. So Biden attacks Trump, saying his wing of the Republican Party is a threat to democracy. This is out of NPR. So President Biden on Thursday warned Americans that democracy is under attack from a faction of the Republican Party led by former President Donald Trump, the old MAGA, and called on Democrats, mainstream Republicans, and independents to speak up, speak out, get engaged, vote, vote, vote. Quite the election prime time speech that he had. Not quite sure who authorized it or how they pulled it off. It certainly maybe worked differently in their heads and changed after the results and the backlash and the feedback that came in, but we'll get to some of that. So Biden attacked his predecessor, saying that too much of what's happening in our country today isn't normal. Well, no shit, but is that because of Trump or is that because of you? So the speech came just 2 months ahead of the midterm congressional elections, where Democrats are fighting to keep their slim majorities in the Senate and House of Representatives. Biden said the Republican Party is dominated, driven, and intimidated by Donald Trump and his supporters, calling it a threat to this country. Yes, there's never been anything that's been this divisive in American history. It's usually about, he's supposed to be the president of unity, working together, healing, and instead it was just on the attack against classic Americana, seemed to me. So saying they refuse to accept the results of a free election. Well, why don't you just prove everybody wrong if they're bitching about that, or the 2,000 mules, or the ballot stuffing, or the Dominion machinery? Why don't you just be transparent? We just want to see how you got 81 million votes, because a lot of people think that it's bullshit, and they'd like to have a recount, but they won't allow that. At least not so far. We're just supposed to accept what they want us to believe. So he says, and they're working right now as I speak in state after state to give the power to decide elections in America to partisans and cronies, empowering election deniers to undermine democracy itself. Again, this could have been very cleared up, transparent process, open it all up, verify all the signatures, ensure the election integrity, and then there wouldn't be anything to complain about. Once it's there and people could see it, and just they have to, deal with the reality, whatever that is. But if you're not letting the Dominion machinery get audited, and you're not verifying the signatures of all of these ballots that came in the mailbox, then the people are rightfully to be suspicious about it, especially with a staggering 81 million votes. It didn't make any sense with Basement Joe that never left the house. And magically in the morning, they found all these votes that swung the election, and it was the most secure election ever. Okay, well, maybe it was. Well, why don't we prove it, and we can all get on the same page, and then there wouldn't be anything to complain about. I think that's the disconnect here. So the White House claimed it was not a political speech, but Biden launched multiple political broadsides against Trump and his supporters. He called them the MAGA Republicans, or Make America Great Again. So this isn't like the old neocon Republicans that are calling for, endless war and the Department of Homeland Security, and everybody's a terrorist. Everybody needs to get, groped at the airport by the TSA. It's not that kind of Republican. It's the Make America Great, as in like back to the Reagan era. It's classic Republicanism. It's classic Americana. but somehow they're the ones that are the extremists. It doesn't really seem to resonate, but I guess if those are your political adversaries, you'll find any way to smear them. It says Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. Gee, I wonder what they would have said about Reagan during the 80s. I really don't see that. They keep throwing this like fascism around, like, you know, Trump is Orange Hitler, when they have nothing to back up any of those claims. It's just make America great again. Let's do America first. Let's celebrate the Constitution. Oh, why is that extreme? Yeah, regardless of how much you dislike the other side, as the president, you've got to be the unifier. You've got to get everybody on the same page so that maybe we can have political differences aside, but we have to respect the leader and the direction of the country. You know, this country has been MAGA ideology probably up until the 21st century, when we went off the rails to the extreme right of the Bush administration and then the extreme left of the Obama administration. And then we tried to get back to normal with Trump, and now we're back to the extreme left again as this extension of the Obama administration. So we have a fundamental disconnect here in this country over what real fascism actually is. And this looks like fascism to me and to everybody else. And this is why this speech is backfiring badly today after they were celebrating and dunking last night. But this is horrifying imagery, and that's never been seen from an American president before, with the blood red backdrop. I mean, even CNN had to just change the background into kind of a pinkish color because it was so overwhelming and over the top, and people just couldn't believe it. But this is how, I guess, the Democrats in their little bubbles in the background project this, as they are the good guys going after their enemies in MAGA, but they themselves are becoming the total fascist people that they are projecting them onto the Republicans. And here's when I know it hurts the MAGA crowd to admit it, but this is metal as heck. And I will give you that. It is pretty metal. That's awesome, actually, in a way, if that wasn't the president here and giving off these creepy vibes like it's V for Vendetta or 1984, or this is the kind of dystopian thing you see in the Hollywood, but you would never see here in America. But we have changed dramatically. And they're also pushing this whole Dark Brandon thing, but they took it to a whole new level last night in that speech. And here's one from Cat Turd. This image will be shared throughout history of the most evil and worst president in U.S. history. And yeah, that image will be burned into everybody's mind. This will be in textbooks for the next 1,000 years or whatever, some kind of hologram tablets or whatever they're using, assuming we survive this strange time that we are living in. But it's also going to be weird when they're going to be like, who's Cat Turd? What kind of weird time period? You can't go back in history and there's nothing like that, where you got some weird avatars and sock puppets representing people anonymously to share information. But here we are. People in the future are never going to understand. You had to be here to experience it firsthand, or this would never make sense to you. That's how fucked up this time period is in this country, on this planet. But that was quick. Joe Biden is already, the next morning, walking back the sick attacks on MAGA, saying, well, I don't consider any Trump supporter a threat to the country. Well, you certainly did last night, high-fiving, pat on the backs, let's party, we got those MAGA people, we showed them, and then, oh my God, the backlash as reality set in, and you went, oh, maybe we pushed a little too far, and we got to start walking that back. So Biden toned down his tough talk on Friday, defending supporters of the former president, saying they weren't voting for violence. Well, not all 74 million were actually attacking the Capitol. They weren't voting to overrule the election. They were going for a philosophy that he put forward. Okay, well, at least now we're in the reasonable times again, coming together as America. Let's just sit down and have a normal conversation. And just just say, hey, I'm just insisting the speech was directed at those who attack democracy and not everybody else. I do think anyone who calls for the use of violence, fails to condemn violence when it's used, refuses to acknowledge an election has been won, insists upon changing the way. Yeah, like these guys have ever taken the election since 2000 with Gore, and it probably had some legitimate case there. And in 2016, when they thought it was Russian collusion without any evidence, ran 2 years investigation on Trump to find out that it was no collusion. Now all of a sudden they're outraged that anyone would dare question the integrity of the election. Well, yeah, people have a right to do that. People have a right to call recounts. But what we do have in common is we should all be condemning violence against our own people. That is where we draw the line. And these dangerous type of speeches, those are the real threat to democracy. Those are the threat to the constitutional republic that we live in. Hopefully we can get our act together. I know that the Democrats are desperate right now, not looking too hot. They don't have much to run on here for the midterms. They are fearing the red wave. They're not doing so well in the polls. The economy is tanking, and they don't have anything to go on outside of attacking their opposition. So there you have it. Perhaps the most politically divisive speech you will ever see in American history. Let's hope. And then we kind of calm down the next day. So that's great to see. So maybe we can, there's some hope for America and our future after all. We shall see. But thank you for listening. We'll catch you next time.